Evening at the Movies is a proud member of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network. Other shows in the network include Mass Debaters, The Sip List, Crushgasm, Love is Black, Men Are the Prize, Crime Rewind, and Literature Reapers. You can find out all about our shows and more at idnmtrpodcastnetwork.com. Happy listening. You are now entering the world of a movie review. A world full of drama, joy, ridicule, movie spoilers, unpopular opinions, and adult humor for as far as the eye can see. Welcome to An Evening at the Movies.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to your favorite movie-based podcast. This is An Evening at the Movies. I am your host, Casey, and this is, as we all know, the podcast where we eat the stale popcorn, we drink the watered-down sodas, and we discuss all of our favorite movies and why we love them. So, we're not being joined, obviously, by everybody's favorite co-host because she's still recovering from her twice broken ankle and just getting over the flu, but sending out the positive vibes to Amanda as well. But she will be back sooner rather than later. But in the meanwhile, I have an equally great person along for the ride this episode with us. She's been here before. She brought From Justin to Kelly to the table, which was not a bad episode or a bad discussion. I will leave it at that. But for those of you who know, you know, she is the other half of the world famous Cookies and Cream team. She is one of the founding members of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network as well. And just to toot her own horn a little bit, she is also widely responsible for the amazing website that we have as well. So with all of that said, welcome back to the show, Kendra.
Oh, thank you for having me back. Thank you.
You are very welcome. If there is anybody happening to watch or listen who may not necessarily know who the great Kendra is, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yes, I'm a 36-year-old female. I'm the host of Crushgasm, the podcast where my guests come through and they talk about a crush they've had in their life, whether it be from Disney or real life, like elementary school or middle school. We talk about it all, the good and the bad, and also what they have going on. But yeah, and I'm also a writer, and you can find everything at crushgasmpodcast.com and KendraWritesStuff.com.
I mean, at the end of the day, she's a very busy woman. And at the same time, she likes walks on the beaches, Food Network TV shows. Just kidding. Bad joke.
I don't like walks on the beaches. It's too hard to walk on sand. It's so hard.
Well, yeah, and yeah, no, I live 20 minutes from the beach. It's not all it's cracked up to be. So, but we are definitely here for a purpose today, though. We're going to continue our month-long look at Black cinema during the month of February, because evidently I'm surprised it took us 3 years to get here, but that's what we're doing this month. So we've had Harvey on the show. We had CJ on the show. We discussed Bamboozled. We revisited Harlem Nights. Both episodes got incredible numbers for listens and views. So it's definitely a time to get slightly opposite perspective from the guys. And Amanda and I came up with the idea, and we figured we'd round the rest of the month off by getting female perspective on Black cinema as well. So hence the reason, not necessarily the only reason why Kendra's here. Kendra is always invited and open and welcome to come back on the show at any time. But it's nice to get the other perspective and not just necessarily the same people over and over and over again. So, but Kendra brought a recommendation for a movie to look at, and we're going to be looking at Spike Lee's Crooklyn.
I have the VHS copy.
I mean, it's that old. I mean,
94.
May 13th, 1994. That movie is going to be 30 years old here in about, 8 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
No. The maths are hard for me, so I'm not trying to do the counting today. So, but really quick before we get going with the discussion, though, like I said, it was released on May 13th, 1994, directed by Spike Lee, released by Universal Pictures, had a $14 million budget, only made $13 million at the box office. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to go through the whole spiel that like we do every episode. Put a pin in the episode, come back after you go watch it. It's a movie that definitely deserves to be watched, but you can find it on Peacock, so you don't have to actually go out and rent it like some of the other movies we've had to do that with. And I don't remember if we did this a year ago when Kendra was here from Justin to Kelly, but our normal tradition is we like to let our guests wager a guess as to what they think the Rotten Tomato score is for the movie we're discussing. So, would you like to rip the Band-Aid off and take a guess at Rotten Tomatoes?
Like the critic score? Probably 79%.
You looked it up, didn't you?
No, I was guessing.
Yeah, no, you nailed it right on the freaking head.
Figured it's Spike Lee, so it's going to have above 50. But it is a female-led movie. And it's a black female-led movie. So it's not going to be as great as it could be. Because that's just how the world is.
Yeah, I'm actually turning the pages back a couple episodes in my notebook just because I don't remember exactly what Bamboozled got on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm actually curious because it wasn't a very socially or critically acclaimed movie, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was a horrible movie by any stretch of the imagination either. And I don't see. Nope, there it is, because it's like 8 pages notes I had to go through. Rotten Tomato. No, it actually 53% on 106 reviews. Well, I mean, that movie was definitely not a easy topic to approach and discuss, where you're talking about the racial connotations in the entertainment industry and trying to poke fun at black television with blackface and all of that. It was not a very comfortable movie to watch coming from my perspective. Not that it wasn't a great movie, and didn't resonate, but yeah. So, but Spike is definitely a very aware and talented director. So the fact that 79% for this movie, it's not a bad score.
Yeah, I think it tributes to the cast. It's greatly cast. I think the parents were amazing. I mean, for Troy's character, Zelda Harris, who goes on to be in one of my favorite movies ever, The Babysitter's Club. She owns it, and she plays a 10-year-old. And that's really rare. I think in the 90s, child actors were going above and beyond, and she's just one of them. So yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and we'll get to all of that with the discussion as well. But in case people don't want to put a pin in the episode and come back after they go watch the movie, I'll just basically sum up the plot basically in a sentence or two with it's a semi-autobiographical motion picture about Spike Lee's youth growing up in Brooklyn. So you can kind of sort of come at it from that perspective as well. But so I think you kind of sort of already answered the question a little bit before I did that. But I think for the first question, we'll go with, was there a character in the movie that really spoke to you or resonated with you?
Yes, it's always been Troy. I love coming of age movies. That's my favorite genre. I'll say it till the end of my days. That is my genre I love. And when it comes to the Black female experience in those, we just don't get them as often as white characters in suburban settings. So when I was little, I remember we were at like our local video store and they were having like their sidewalk sale of like old VHSs. And my mom saw this one, not this particular one. This is a newer one. Well, newer. It's still old VHS.
Nothing 30 years old is new.
This newer copy. She was like, oh, it just has a Black girl on it. Cause I think my mom wasn't woke, but I think my mom being like a brown white person and having Black kids was like, let me show them people like represent. So my mom was doing Representation Matters before it was cool. So we took this home and loved it. And I immediately loved Troy. I grew up with just brothers as well and a tomboy. So I immediately fell for her and her story. And I've always had a fascination with, if you're a kid from anywhere else in the world, New York just seems like the coolest freaking place in the world. And I love the 1970s as well. So all that combined, I love this movie and Troy.
Well, the 1970s is a great decade because it gave the world two amazing people. That would be myself and Harvey, otherwise known as the AARP members of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network.
I just love the fashion, the music, for Black people, it was just such a great decade of the Black power and like just coming into our own and like pop culture from TV to movies. It's just lovely to see. Like embracing natural hair it was just a wonderful decade for the culture, as Dre would say.
Well,
Masturbators.
They really hit on a lot of that in this movie. From top to bottom, whether it was TV and it wasn't even necessarily directly linked to Black TV even. The kids, were gathered around the TV watching the Partridge Family. They were gathered around the TV dancing around a Soul Train. TV was a big part of their existence. And then as well, you could flip it around that, music played a huge part of the movie. There was great classic R&B music throughout that entire movie.
There was, I will say though, Spike Lee, this is 94, so he probably did it before. When was Boys in the Hood though? Because Black movies
right about the same time.
Black
I think it was
movies
93.
love to put the song "Ooh Child," things are good. Like that is like at the end of a Black movie. You're like, and it's such a perfect song to end a movie. But yeah, that's my favorite part of Black cinema is that song, and this movie does incorporate it.
I don't want to sound like an asshole, but we started getting towards the end of the movie, and I was waiting for it. I really was, because it's like, and it's not even just Boys in the Hood. That song is a Black movie trope where you can almost, count on it to pop up at some point, even if it's just like a little minuscule moment. You're going to hear the notes of that song or whatever somewhere in the movie.
It's like, you have like those parody movies like Scary Movie and Not Another Teen Movie. But I think if you did like Black cinema, that song would be in there. It would be really funny.
Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a great song.
No, it's a great song.
And it kind of sort of, I guess, sums up the whole premise of what they were trying to get, especially the final message that they're trying to deliver at the end of the movie, which, I don't think we necessarily need to get to immediately at this point, but, but there's a solid message that he's trying to get across with this story. And it really, it fits both. Well, and it fits for Boys in the Hood. It fits for this movie. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if people are going to latch onto it, then go ahead and use it. So,
Exactly.
what exactly was it though about the movie that caused you to fall in love with it?
I think as a kid, it was the part with the dog and the couch. I love that part. That part is hilarious, and me and my mom still laugh about that to this day. And my mom doesn't have the best memories, so like that's something we like definitely bonded over, thinking that was hilarious because we have dark sense of humors. But now watching it as an adult, it is that like Black female experience that we just don't get in movies that I love, unfortunately. I also like the mother-daughter relationship in it. And I like now that, coming from an adult perspective and having, gone through life and lived a little, Black women, Black girls were often pushed towards adulthood a lot earlier than our male counterparts. And maybe like white girls or like we're just pushed to be older or sexualized more as well. We do develop earlier. But you do see that in this movie because her mom, when she was going to pass away, is like, you have to take care of Joseph, the younger one. And you see that at the end of the movie, she's in the role of the mother brushing his hair. And I kind of like paying homage to everything that a Black woman goes through in life. Because even the mother, before she's overworked, underpaid, she's doing everything around the house and kind of letting the father, Woody, try to live out his dream as a musician, and everything's put on her. And then you see, well, is this kind of cyclical because everything's then going to be put on Troy's shoulders, is what we're saying. We're always putting everything on the Black woman in families. But yeah,
well, it's
that's
like,
what I like.
even like the opening of the movie where they're sitting around the table and she makes the announcement, when I get home tonight, that damn kitchen better be fucking clean, and this better be done, and that better be done, and that better be. And there's like this big long list of things that she's dumping on, the kids to do. And, she's being a supportive wife, and she's going to be there for Woody while he's going out and, performing his music, whatever. But then yet she comes home and none of the stuff that was supposed to be done is done. And, she, for lack of a better term, beats the kids' asses.
Yeah, my
and
husband
drags
was
them out
like,
of bed.
my husband's like, that's mean. And I'm like, no, like, that's what happens. Like, if you don't do what you need to do, mom has the right, at least back then in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, moms are going to do what mom's got to do. Now, God forbid, a child gets told no and they flip out. Sorry, I work at a school and I see very, very spoiled children. Yeah, that's what she had to do.
No,
What she had
I
to do.
get it, because I'm, like I said, I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, and my late teenage years were in the 90s. So I am a product of that. I can attest to the fact that even the fact that, surprise, surprise, I'm not, a colored child. Shocking, I know, but like, I went through some of the same stuff growing up that, those kids went through growing up in that household. Like, I remember one time at school, I had one of these Nike windbreakers that had one of those pouches across the front of your stomach. That I took and I opened it up and I filled it with like those little minuscule playground pebbles, and zipped it back closed. And I went home with the rocks in my hoodie, or in my windbreaker. And my mom put the windbreaker in the laundry and ran it, and the zipper came open and all the rocks came out. I'm not going to lie. Ass beating. And I did. And I got drug out of bed at 4:00 in the morning, and she laid me across the top of the damn dryer, and I had to fish all the damn rocks out of the freaking wash machine. I mean,
yeah,
like I said, I deserved it. And I'm not faulting her by any stretch of the imagination, but that's definitely, I think, elements of growing up in the environment that some of us have grown up in. where if you didn't grow up in that environment, you're not going to fully understand having to do that.
I think that's what's sad about movies like this that showcase maybe 70s or 80s or 90s is that like people our age are always going to be like, oh, I can relate to that. And I don't know if like a kid growing up now is going to particularly relate because they were watching TV with like the whole family. They weren't sitting in front of their own screens in their room. So I think there's a nostalgia to this movie too that it makes it, at least for millennials and older, that we can love and appreciate because like you said, you don't have to be Black to appreciate the certain parts and aspects of this movie to take you back to your childhood, even if they're not so great memories, but they're still memories nonetheless. But
I mean, I had great memories this was very much a nostalgia watch for me. And at the same time, it's still like, I fully appreciate the fact that I can't relate to everything that's going on in this, but there was a lot of stuff in this movie that I could relate to because I grew up, very, bottom of the barrel poor, which same thing with these kids. I grew up listening to the same music. I grew up watching the same TV shows. I grew up in a single parent household where, granted, this family wasn't directly a single parent household, but at times it felt like it was a single parent household because, Woody wasn't there all the time, or there was issues and Woody was getting kicked out of the house, or, whatever the case may be. But, it sincerely was a very much a nostalgia pick, which was one of the reasons why I fell in love with it so quickly. Is it's like, wow, it's like every aspect of my childhood is right there on the screen in front of me.
And that's why I like this movie too. I like that. That's why I don't. There's that movie, The Hate You Give. It came out in recent years. It's I think it has to do with like police brutality, and it's like when you make a movie, especially today, and it is a coming of age movie, and you put a Black person or you put a brown person, they try to make it really about the race. And I don't like that because that's not our whole story. Like, I don't walk around being like, my whole identity is tied to like my skin color. Crooklyn, I like that they don't do that. This is just about a family in the 70s. And it's not because they're Black. It's because like they're just in the 70s struggling like so many other families probably were at the time. And that's why I like this movie too. They don't make it, this is the story of a Black girl. There is aspects of that when she goes to Aunt Song's house. And
that was an experience.
Yeah, which I've experienced as someone who's mixed. And I do not like Aunt Song's probably one of the worst characters I've ever seen on TV. She's that I'm like, Southern people are so nice because they're talking like they're nice, but really they're saying the most cutthroat, mean things you can imagine.
Condescending.
She's so racist. She's so self-hating. And I always wondered, how did the uncle end up with her? Because his brother is Woody. His brothers are like these New Yorkers, and he's just like down in Chesapeake Bay with this horrible human. And then their adopted daughter, who they're obviously old Eastern whitewashing. They're taking away her natural hair. They're making her watch these weird white Christians on TV. So yeah,
that freaking song was something.
So that's kind of the only time you felt like race played into it, but they were experiencing racism from other Black people. So, which happens. I get it too. I've been called things from Black people. It's usually more than white people, but yeah, when you're mixed, it's rough.
But no, and I totally get exactly what you're saying though too, because with the exception of that time with her being in Chesapeake Bay, I literally had no inclination at all anywhere in my soul that this had anything to do with race. It was just a family biopic. Well, I mean, even at the same time, it's like Brooklyn isn't like 100% a Black borough in New York.
I think at the time it was. It's definitely gotten gentrified in the last like 20 years. But I think I stayed there when I went, and I was in like the Caribbean, like I stayed with a Jamaican family. And so it's still, but there's little like spots where you can tell the whites have come in and put their Whole Foods and Starbucks and stuff. So they're definitely trying to change it. But I think at the time, it was like Brooklyn was black. I mean, who's from like Chris Rock's from there? You have like a lot of the hip hop artists. So it was, but
Oh, I'm sure if you
now,
dig below the surface, you can find a whole long laundry list of people that grew up in Brooklyn.
But it's all,
I mean-
and I like that they also put the Hispanics in too. I think a lot of times black and brown people get pit against each other in things in life, but we're on the same page. We're going through the same struggles. So I like that she had the little Puerto Rican friend, and they kind of had those characters as well.
Well, that was kind of sort of what I was getting at too, because it's like you just said though, Puerto Rico, well, Latin Americans and African Americans aren't necessarily directly the same thing, but they have very similar struggles that they've gone through in this country. Mm-hmm. So they can definitely get together on the same page and in some way, shape, or form relate to what each other's going through. Mm-hmm. So definitely hats off to Spike for acknowledging that and incorporating that into the story as well.
As someone who is brown and black, I appreciate the representation of those two kind of cultures. I'm not like Dominican or anything, I'm just Spanish, but I like to see brown and black on screen together.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's absolutely, I don't know where my appreciation for it came, but probably from the fact that I had a very open-minded mother. But I remember being a kid and, having, experiences with jazz music or African-American movies or, things. So I felt like because of the great parenting of my mom that I had a lot of that, openness brought to me. So I felt like growing up, I didn't necessarily come into my later teenage years and into my adulthood with as narrow-minded or as closed-minded of a perspective as other people do.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging by any stretch of the imagination. We get raised with, what the tools that our parents have, right, wrong, or indifferent. Mm-hmm. So, but as we grow up, especially in today's society with all the tools at our disposal, i.e. the interwebs and all of that, there's no excuse for, being closed-minded and narrow-minded in this day and age. Mm-hmm. So definitely all of that. With all that discussing about everything you liked about the movie, you kind of sort of have to flip the coin over and address the other side of the coin too. Was there anything about the movie that you didn't particularly care for?
Yes, Clinton, the oldest brother with the glasses. I thought he was so selfish. I know that Troy steals his buffalo nickels. My mom's a coin collector, and I know how mad someone can get when their coins are taken. But he was just like mean. He was just a mean-spirited kid, but he redeems himself at the end when he holds her hand at the wake. But other than that, I thought he was such a spoiled little brat. Well, not spoiled, but just a bratty kid. He's picked the Knicks game over his father's concert, and he was just always on them to turn the channel, which it's like, no, if we voted 3-2, you're out. But he does redeem himself. But up until that point, I'm like, ugh.
I mean, I'm not necessarily excusing his whole, choosing the Knicks over his dad's concert.
Honestly, if it was like Backstreet Boys or like my dad's something, I'd be like,
I was gonna say, good and hell, if it was Backstreet Boys or NSYNC, you'd have been choosing that concert over.
Not NSYNC. If they ever toured together, yes. Not back in the day. I was never. Oh, you couldn't get me to admit to liking NSYNC as like a 12-year-old.
It could still happen, I guess.
If Justin gets desperate enough for money, he'll come around. But I'll be even happier with the Backstreet Boys Spice Girls joint tour.
I know that would make your world.
Yeah, it would break my savings account.
I do think though the whole him choosing the Knicks game over his dad's concert though, if you understand Spike Lee as a person, you know how
Yeah.
big the Knicks are in his. I mean, I don't think there's a regular season ball game where he's not sitting courtside at Madison Square Garden.
I think
And
it
again,
goes back.
not saying it's well. No, go ahead. I'll finish after.
I was saying I think it goes back to the whole like cyclical thing of the dynamic in family, because you have Troy ending up having to step up for her family, but then you have Clinton kind of following Woody's steps and being like all about himself and what he wants, like how it's all about him and his music. It's all about him and his Knicks game. So I think maybe that was to mirror the parents.
Yeah, no, that I actually kind of sort of can get on page with that 100%. I was just referencing the fact though that I think it's kind of, ironic, nudge, nudge, wink, wink,
Yeah.
that's the one time the Knicks won a championship. And it's like still, okay, we're in what, 2024 now, and
Wow.
50 some odd years later, and they still haven't won another one yet. And this was made 30 years ago, so
Well, Knicks, you have Patrick Ewing. I mean, when the Bulls had Jordan and now we have LeBron, like get yourself a star.
it costs money to win championships.
Well, tell Spike Lee to toss some money at him. Get you a good player in the draft.
Yeah.
Love him so much.
Well, I mean, you can't tell me he hasn't shelled out several millions and millions and millions of dollars
For the seats.
for his seat. I don't know how many seats he has, but I know at least one seat
I would
courtside.
just have me. I'd be like, no one could come with me. It's just my thing. I'd have one courtside seat by myself.
Well, I mean, Spike Lee on the East Coast is the equivalent of Jack Nicholson on the West Coast with the Lakers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You don't see other people sitting there with Jack Nicholson courtside at the Staples Center or whatever the hell it's called now.
The crypto center or something like that.
Yeah. I didn't even realize until like last year that they'd even changed the name from Staples Centers to Crypto Bank One, Capital One Center, whatever.
3 friends that work there, so I know very well it changed.
Yeah. I'm not gonna nostalgia wise, I miss the days of everybody having the forum or whatever the case may be.
The forum is so cool. When you fly into LA and you see the forum from above, it's really cool. And I love the outside. It's one of my favorite buildings in Los Angeles. And I'm sad that they built that SoFi near it. They were building it when I moved. I didn't get to see it complete.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I personally think SoFi is one of the biggest eyesores in the country.
It's just, and it ruined I went to my free clinic was right by the forum where they built SoFi. And as soon as they broke ground, my clinic shut down. And so it's definitely raising prices and all that. And that's in Inglewood. It's part of LA that I'll say white people didn't like to travel except for shows and stuff at the forum. So now it's opening up those floodgates. It sucks because it was such a nice pocket below the 10 freeway that the gentrification wasn't coming yet, because people you hear Inglewood and you get scared, but Inglewood's actually really nice. It's one of the nicer areas of LA, I think.
I've never been to Southern California before, so I can't speak on that, but I will definitely take your word for it because you spent a lot of time.
16 years in LA.
That's a lot of time. I don't know if I could handle 16 years in Southern California. That's way too many earthquakes for me.
Oh, I only went through like big ones that I was like scared, maybe 2 or 3. Other than that, little like you're just like sitting there like something happening. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I would assume it's something you probably get used to over time. It's like, yeah, it is what it is.
We're asleep. Usually you're asleep. But yeah, 2 or 3 big ones. I actually went to school in Northridge where they had those big ones in the 90s or whatever. And I was like, and I had one in college during summer school once. I was taking a nap on the couch and I was like, oh my God, this is it. but I lived, obviously.
Well, we had a couple up here like 25 years ago ish, and nowhere near as big as like the 89 quake in San Francisco and some of the big ones in LA. But that's definitely weird to be standing in the middle of Safeway and
Yeah.
it feels like a big truck's driving by and all of a sudden everything just starts shaking and stuff starts falling off the shelves and it's like, oh damn. And it doesn't last for very long, but at the same time it's still like that was kind of a weird experience. I'm glad I'm safe. I'm glad everybody's safe, but wow, that was a rabbit hole.
But that things I didn't like. Obviously, I don't like the cancer plot line of it. As a kid, didn't bother me as much, but now having been through a loved one having cancer, it was a rough watch as an adult. Now I was like, don't cry. I had to make a joke. I was like making jokes so I wouldn't cry while I was watching it. I was like, no, be tough, be strong.
Yeah,
laugh about it.
I'm grateful that portion of the story was not
long.
A huge, I mean, she literally comes back from Chesapeake Bay to have her uncle and aunt like, oh, we're not going home just yet. We need to stop somewhere. And they show up at the hospital and she finds out her mom's sick. And then, yeah, it's like, what, 3-5 minutes later after everybody goes home that dad walks in and he's like, shut the TV off. I need to have a talk with you guys. Here's what's going on. And then it was like 2 or 3 minutes later, she was gone.
Yeah, and I think that's another aspect of making it more than just like, this is a Black story. This is universal. If you have a loved one that has cancer, you're going to know what this moment felt like. Oh
no, my mom went through it big time to the point that stage 4 and 90% chance it was coming back. Knock on wood, it never did. But at the same time, it's a very scary thing to go through. I know because of conversations, we've had, you and I have had, that you've gone through it as well. And you've been that rock and support person for the person that was going through it at the time.
Yeah, to be a caretaker is, I mean, obviously it's worse to be the person with it, but caretakers as well. It's rough.
I mean, yeah, I'm not taking any kind of the stress or manageability or all of that away from the person going through it, because that's one big, huge, long nightmare. But being the caretaker that's there every day, seeing that person go through what they're going through, definitely 100% is not something that's easy to do when it comes to losing hair, losing weight, the side effects and all of it from the treatments and all of it. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination.
So while it was like hard to watch, I'm glad that it was like a quick kind of end of the story wrap up thing, that we didn't have to see the mom go through what comes with that type of diagnosis.
I mean, I'm glad that they had their moment together as mother and daughter, because that helped put that bow on the story that needed to be there. Where I feel like if that had been something that had like happened while she was on the plane coming home and she didn't get to be there to have that moment, then you're opening up Pandora's box for a whole nother hour and a half worth of story with psychological trauma and PTSD from all of that. And
I think it goes back to like the Black women having to be so strong, because Troy doesn't cry at first. She does not cry. She's the last one to cry when she has when her dad's, I think, fighting off rats in the kitchen, a very common New Yorker thing. And she thinks that her mom and dad are fighting, and she goes downstairs to tell him to stop. And that's when it kind of hits her. And he's like, Mom's gone.
He's not there.
She ends up puking, but then he tells her it's okay to cry. And I think it goes with that thing of like, Black women having to be strong and not wanting to show emotion. I definitely feel that. I hate showing emotion. I hate to cry. That's why I just said I will make jokes. It's also how I was raised. We're a joking family.
I am totally sorry. You make jokes?
Yeah, I'm just like
I have never heard you make a joke in almost a year and a half of being a part of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network.
Yeah, I don't like seriousness. I think you're always going to approach it with laughter. Like in 2021, we almost lost my mom, and I remember that was like the first time I had to be like Troy, where it was like you have. I was like, oh my god, like I have to be in charge of these people. I have to be the one with the straight head. And I remember like not crying with anybody. My aunt coming in because my mom she had to have open heart surgery. She smoked for 50 years. So and then she did a lot more than smoke cigarettes. I won't go into too much detail, won't spill her tea, but yeah, I think she had to have like 8 stents put in or something, and something went wrong and they had to take her back in immediately. She lost oxygen, and my aunt came in the house flipping out like, oh, I can't lose my sister. Meanwhile, I'm trying to make sure like in our family it's board games. Like when we're together, let's play Monopoly, whatever. So I'm trying to keep my brother calm because he's a mama's boy. I'm trying to keep my nephew calm because he's a grandma's boy. Everybody, and my aunt, I told my aunt, I took her outside, I was like, you have to go. And I remember I didn't cry. I was like, when you're nervous and you have like diarrhea, TMI, but I didn't have to, but it was like that stomach pain and all night because they were like the next 24 hours are so crucial. So I did not sleep. I was like in the bathroom, just like crying, can't sleep. Like I didn't want anyone to see it though. Cause like Troy, like you have to be strong for everyone around you, not show those emotions.
Yeah.
But amazingly, my mom made it through.
Well, I mean, that says a lot too, because 50 years as a smoker, that's not anything to shake a damn stick at. I mean, I started that habit when I was 15, and almost a year ago, put it down and haven't picked up another one since. So March 13th will be 1 year. Yay for me.
Congratulations. My mom actually losing oxygen, something happened. She actually forgot she smoked. She woke up and didn't crave it. They kept putting the nicotine patches on her, and she's like, why are you doing this? And they're like, well, you're a smoker. And she's like, no, I'm not. And she has not smoked since. She just forgot.
So yeah, I can almost say the same thing like that, because you were there for everything that was going on last year. But for those of you who don't know the whole story, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I went in the hospital for 2 weeks last March, and for the better part of that 2 weeks, I had zero cravings at all from the time I went into the hospital to the time I came out of the hospital. I didn't even want to smoke at all. The only hiccup I ever had was the day I got out. Literally, I live a mile and a half away from the hospital. From the time I walked out the door to the time my brother got me home, I got one phone call from a buddy of mine that wanted me to stop by and come have a cigarette. I told him, I haven't had one in 2 weeks. I'm done. I'm not doing it. I need to do what's best for my health. And he's like, okay. And in the meanwhile, I haven't talked to him since. So if that's what it took to foster our friendship, see you, dude. There's more to me than just being a smoker. But yeah, that one little hitch was the only thing that I've had. There's been an occasional moment where it's like, oh, I used to go outside at this point and have a cigarette, but it's like, why am I going to do that now? It's been 6 months. It's been 8 months. It's been a year. Why am I going to flush all that down the toilet for one damn cigarette that's probably going to make me puke anyway now because I haven't done it in a year? So
yes.
All of that. So yeah, I think
also have to mention RuPaul is in this movie, my queen.
I totally forgot to bring that up, but again, because it's one of those topics before that we've had discussions on other shows, being like our draft show, how much Kendra loves the RuPaul and is in full support of the drag race and all of that. And yeah.
But RuPaul being in this is pretty cool. I remember I loved RuPaul. I remember the first time I saw them was in like the B-52s video, but it was like the pop-up video version. And then seeing them in this, and then the talk show that my family was a huge fan of his talk show back on VH1, and then just see them become like a freaking billionaire has been really cool because RuPaul's just been a part of my life ever since I was little.
That was definitely a huge nostalgia shout out for me. Fucking pop-up videos. Jesus God, Kendra.
Oh, I love
Not-
pop-up video. Oh my God. I feel like that's why kids today don't have an appreciation for what came before them. Like I love the 70s and the 60s and stuff, and even the 80s, because TV before streaming, you could only watch old things. And then VH1 was so educational with music, behind the music, pop-up video, just showing all the old video. I just love it. And I think kids are missing out greatly on their history because VH1's now just reality.
So here's an idea that just formulated in my immensely powerful brain, but like pop-up video and behind the music and all those things that we got with like MTV and behind the or VH1, that was like almost our generation's version of Crushgasm.
Yeah, I mean a little bit. They just
I mean,
like
not 100%. Crushgasm took the ball and ran its own direction with it, but you know, definitely trying to make a solid connection for the younger audience and be like, hey, you need to go check out Crushgasm. It's a great freaking show. I've been on it, and it's highly entertaining. So definitely all of that. All right, so holy crap, we're getting close on running out of time. So if you were to give your overall thoughts and opinions on the movie, and what would they be? And go ahead and rate the movie on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being horrible and 5 being, I would say Citizen Kane, but I did not enjoy Citizen Kane, so I won't say Citizen Kane is a great movie. But 1 being poor, 5 being great. No metaphors.
If you, like I said, this is obviously something celebrated in Black cinema, but it's just a good movie in cinema in general. It's a story of a family, a struggling family, the story of a young Black girl. It's coming of age. And I think when you lay out all the coming of age movies that I have watched and enjoyed, this is a top tier one because it's coming from a fresh perspective. It's not just, oh, I started school and a boy doesn't like me and now I don't know what to do. No, this is like real life, what happens in family. Where we rarely get family in those types of movies, usually based around school. So I think if you like teen movies, check it out. But if you also like family dynamic movies, check it out. And I would give it a solid 4. So the only thing that scared me, I was so scared of Spike Lee's character and Snuffy and then Right Hand, the guys that sniffed glue. I thought they were terrifying. I did not like her dream sequence with them. I didn't like when they were in real life. Other than that kind of weird aspect of the movie, solid 4.
Well, I mean, realistically,
it's also heavy. It's a heavy subject matter, so 4.
Well, it is really a lot heavier than you would think, but at the same time, it's not something that a week after you sit down and watch it, you're going to feel like, oh my God, there's this big weight sitting on my chest from watching this movie. And it's definitely eye-opening and thought-provoking, and can be very much, especially if you're in your, I would say, mid 30s or older. Yeah. It can very much be a nostalgia picture. You can agree with me or not if you want on that. I actually be kind of curious to ask Tuesday night and see what Dre thinks as well, since you guys are both in that, late 80 baby.
What's also nostalgic about it is like the kid, just all the scenes of the kids playing outside together. I just don't see that anymore. Just being out until the street light comes on, knowing every kid in your neighborhood playing
or the horn blows or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
Yeah. Like your mom's like, well, for me, it was like Dre mentioned on one of our drafts, 5 p.m. I got to be home for the Power Rangers. Like I knew where I needed to be.
I think that was actually last week's episode.
Yeah. Usually little side note, the Batman animated series was on at 4:30 and I thought that was too dark. I would mute it. I was like, this is too dark for me, this content. Even as a little kid, I was like, and so I would mute it until 5 unless I was outside playing with my nephew who is a few years younger.
Then it was Power Ranger time.
Yeah, him being a little boy, he got like all the toys, and I still I was like, I'm not giving up my Barbies. So I would get Barbie. I would just take my nephew's toys.
Definitely. I love all the nostalgia. And that was probably the biggest thing. Other than there was a lot of stuff I took away from this movie. I can't put it all into one succinct review, but definitely the nostalgia hit home a lot because even being not from the culture, a lot of the stuff that I saw in the movie was still stuff that I could relate to. The being outside and, hanging out with, your friends, sitting there.
Just
like
shooting the shit,
Yeah, like I grew up for several years of my childhood living in like little group of like duplexes that had like a playground in the middle of the circle.
Mhm.
And like all the kids on the property, like we'd hang out and sit and listen to music on the slide or whatever, and kind of like the kids sitting on the stoop out front of the house in this movie, or what you normally see, I assume, in Brooklyn. I've never been, so
they do. It's really cool when you see them sitting on stoops or outside, like the old like black guys playing like cards or dominoes. Like it's really cool because you're like, oh my god, I've seen this in movies a million times. It happens.
Well, and even to the same extent, like even the older kids would hang out in that playground area because that'd be like where they all went to smoke cigarettes or whatever the case may be. So you get like the whole thing with like Snuffy and all the stuff that they were doing on the stoop, yeah, you can relate to everything going on in the movie. So it's definitely an awesome movie, and I would recommend personally, and I'm pretty sure that my amazing guest would agree with me. If you guys have not seen this movie and listened to us ramble on for about an hour about it, then I highly recommend you go and see it because it's a great movie.
I feel like it is to Spike Lee what Jackie Brown is to Quentin Tarantino. It's like their best, but no one's gonna like. Maybe not everyone has seen it because it's like, well, it's a girl. That's what Jackie Brown. I feel like Jackie Brown's my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, and it doesn't get the love that it deserves. Like I feel like this doesn't either from in the Spike Lee Geist.
So, yeah, I mean, I totally get what you're saying with the whole Jackie Brown thing, though, because so many of Tarantino's movies, not all of them, but I would say all, but maybe the exception of like 3 are all male-driven stories, whether it's Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Django, Hateful Eight, whatever. But Jackie Brown and Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, that'd be probably about it, unless there's something I'm missing.
Those would be my top 3.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a fun discussion, and I think we covered a lot more than I thought we were actually going to get to. So, yay for us. We can't obviously wrap up an episode without thanking the listeners for being here each and every week. You guys are incredible. And really quick before I let Kendra remind everybody I always hate trying to fill that word because it's like, I'm not the all-powerful being. I'm not trying to allow you to remind, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
But before we get to Kendra reminding everybody about everything that she does, though, I want to shout out the fact that our Black Movie Month, or Black Cinema Month that we are currently in the midst of, and hopefully we will be delivering one more episode to you before the end of the month if we can get Cam scheduled to be here before then. If not, unfortunately, we did 3 solid episodes, and we actually did great listenership and viewership on all 3 episodes. So I want to thank you guys for being a part of that. And I can promise you that this is going to become a regular portion of an evening at the movies and we won't necessarily even wait until February to do it, but we will definitely be looking at Black cinema more. I can't believe it took us 3 years to get to this point, but hats off to Harvey and Dre for helping fuel my desire to get this done so that we can pay tribute to the culture as well. Obviously, thank you, Kendra, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Even if, I had a little verbal slippage and reference Cam being the priority to get on the show because we needed Black women, and Kendra got overlooked. Wasn't my intention.
Happens.
We're glad that you were available to come in and recommend a great movie and come sit down and discuss it with me.
Yes, thank you for having me, and let me discuss Crooklynn. Again, you can probably find it on a VHS somewhere at a thrift store near you, or again on Peacock streaming. Should I remind people?
Yeah, go ahead. The floor is yours. Let them know all about the Crushgasm and all of it.
You can, again, crushgasmpodcast.com. Guests come through, talk about different crushes they've had in life, whether they be from pop culture or real life. Everyone can relate to having a crush. And then you can find everything I write at kendrawritesstuff.com. I actually just did 23 movies that can turn your frown upside down, and that should be up soon. Celebrities that are basically golden retrievers in human form. So the most lovable, delightful celebrities out there, things like that. You can find at kendrawritesstuff.com. But thank you again for having me.
Kendra's got a lot of stuff going on. She's got 18 irons in the fire.
Yeah.
And on top of it, she has to stay updated on all of her Food Network shows as well.
Yes. Was it Food Show Fanatics, where me and my husband take our love of food shows like Kids Baking Championship and Food Truck Race, and we review it, and we talk crap about children and their cooking. I mean, not too bad. We try not to be as tough on the kids as we are on the adults. And we've yet to do a Hell's. We should have did this season of Hell's Kitchen. It was such a good one, but we didn't.
I enjoyed it a lot. I'm not gonna lie.
We'll talk more after you stopped recording, but I had some issues.
Oh, I'm sure there's a long conversation to be had about that, but definitely, I discovered Food Show Fanatics last year during the Great Food Truck Race, and I think you and I sat down and almost every week had the discussion about who should be going home, who should not be going home, who should not have been coming back after they got booted off of the show. Not naming any names.
Yeah, we watch food shows like they're sports. We're very into them because we're not just like food show fans. Me and my husband are former fat kids as well. So we're foodies now, former fat kids in our childhood. Yeah, my husband clocked in at 400 pounds once upon a time, and I was just
so did I.
See, so and I looked like the guy from The Blind Side in a skirt as a child.
So yeah, when I got diagnosed with congestive heart failure and type 2 diabetes, I was just north of 400 pounds. So
that'll make
not anywhere near where I need to be now, but I'm definitely not 400 pounds by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, even to this, like, I will even throw out the fact that like one of my guilty pleasure food competition shows just came back last Sunday night, and I like religiously follow the freaking TOC Tournament of Champions with Guy Fieri.
That's a good one.
So with all of that said, though, we're not trying to ramble, but definitely coming up on an evening at the movies. As long as we can get, even if we can't get Cam for Black Cinema movie or Black Cinema episode, Cam is coming really soon. She'll either have a Black Cinema episode or she'll be a part of movies that everybody should see once in their lifetime, which is coming up in March and April, as well as my guest on my left-hand side on the screen has a birthday coming up in April as well. So hopefully she'll be back in April with a birthday movie as well. Hint, hint. Pick a movie and we can get that taken care of as well, ma'am. And also after April, we've got a month of superhero movies. And in June, we will be starting our entire summer dedicated to the cinematic year of 1984. So we're going to talk about 40-year-old movies for the entire summer. Ghostbusters, Gremlins, Beverly Hills Cop.
Gremlins.
Yes. And you know what? You are more than welcome to come and be a part of the episode if you want as well.
Because you know I have a huge gizmo on the back of my leg, don't you? I have a tattoo, huge gizmo.
I did not know that, but fun fact, we will be discussing that in June when Gremlins and Kendra return to an evening at the movies. Purple Rain, Footloose, Karate Kid, a bunch of other movies as well. We're talking literally like 12 movies in 3 months that we'll be discussing as well. And then, you know, the rest of the stuff that usually comes in September, October, the rest of the year. When I rail it down into all of that compressed into one, it's like, oh man, it seems like Christmas is right around the corner, but we haven't even gotten out of February yet.
Yeah.
So with all that said, again, thank you, Kendra, for being here. Thank you, listeners, for being here each and every week. I will say this. We were, by the time this episode releases, we were live last Friday night. I highly recommend you go find the live because Amanda will be back. Chancey will be here for that live episode. We had a great time discussing a very similar topic that the three of us have. If you don't know, then shame on you. But other than that, again, as always, thank you guys. I love you guys all. You guys are awesome. You guys are the reason why An Evening at the Movies is 3 years old and officially 202 episodes into our run. So, but at the end of the day, as much fun as we have, we still hope you guys all come back for An Evening at the Movies. Have a good week, guys. We will see you next week.